Welcome to the Back to Life podcast, where we explore living well, loving well, and being well. I'm your host, Nicole, and I invite you to tune in for inspirational conversations to get you back to life. Let's get started. Welcome to the final episode of our Season of Life series. I'm Nicole, and if you've been with me on this journey, me and therapist LaQuesia Love have been exploring winter, that wilderness season of stillness and waiting, spring, that beautiful but messy season of growth and renewal, and summer, the abundant harvest season. And now we are going to talk about the fall, which is that pruning season. And it's a season of transition and letting go. So fall gives us a masterclass on letting go. Just like the trees shed their leaves in a spectacular show of reds, orange, golds, greens, all of those beautiful colors, we humans also face seasons where we have to release things that no longer serve us. But let's be honest, letting go is really, really hard. I mean, Marie Kondo made an entire empire based on the fact that most of us would rather keep 57 mismatched Tupperware containers with no lids than actually letting something go, right? So I want to welcome again LaQuesia Love for helping us to navigate this challenging but transformative season. I'm very thrilled to have her. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, Nicole. And that Tupperware comment hit a little bit too close to home. I literally did a container purge recently and found lids from years ago. And I've been saying, just in case. But that's exactly what makes this conversation so important. Even when we logically know something isn't good for us anymore, whether it's those lidless containers, a relationship that's run its course, or a mindset that keeps us stuck, we humans get remarkably attached to our comfort zones.
Yeah.
There's something about the familiar, even if it's not serving us, that feels safer than the unknown.
Exactly. You know, that's there's that saying that the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, right? We'd rather stay with what's familiar, even if it's not great, than step into any kind of uncertainty. But that's what this season is about, learning to trust the process of letting go, right?
Yes. And I'm so excited to explore this with your listeners, because once we understand the purpose and the power of pruning, it transforms from something we dread into something we can actually embrace.
Oh, for sure. So we all know that letting go is hard, right? We're not just talking philosophically here. I want to acknowledge that even when we know a relationship is draining us, a job is crushing our spirit, a habit is holding us back, or even our mindset is keeping us small, we often hold on because it's familiar. It's like that old sweater with holes in it that you refuse to throw out, even though it's definitely seen better days.
Stop calling me out. I literally have college sweatshirts from forever ago, and my husband, who doesn't like to keep anything, keeps trying to put my stuff in a donation pile. But
I do.
But you're actually right. And what's fascinating is that this attachment to the familiar is actually wired in our neurobiology. Our brains are designed to seek certainty and avoid perceived threats. Even when a situation is objectively not good for us, our brain often prefers it to uncertainty, because uncertainty registers as a potential danger in our primitive survival mode. That's why change, even positive change, can trigger such deep resistance.
And you know, that makes so much sense. It's like our brains are saying, listen, I know this job is making you cry in your car every lunch break, but at least we know what to expect. Right? Who knows what terrors might await in a new workplace, right?
Exactly. Our brains are so dramatic like that. But here's the reframe that I work on with my clients. Pruning isn't punishment, it's preparation. And when
we talked about that.
Yeah, we did. When an expert gardener prunes a plant, they're not harming it. They're actually setting it up to grow stronger and more abundant in the next season. There's this beautiful Japanese practice called
Milwaukee.
How did you know that? It's
Oh, just a guess.
the art of cloud pruning. Master gardeners carefully trim trees not by cutting randomly, but having a vision of the shape they want to reveal. They see the perfect form that's already within the tree and they simply remove what's obscuring it.
Oh, wow. I love that image. So when we're in a fall season of life, maybe we can think of it not as losing something,
Mm-hmm.
but as revealing something, uncovering the shape of who we're meant to be by removing what's hiding it.
Yes, and that subtle shift in perspective changes everything. Instead of thinking I'm losing this relationship or I'm giving up this dream, we can ask ourselves, what might this clearing make space for? What shape of my life am I revealing?
Oh, that's beautiful. But I also want to acknowledge that knowing this intellectually doesn't always make it emotionally easier, right?
Right.
Knowing and the feeling are two very different things.
Absolutely. And that's exactly why fall can be such a bittersweet season. There's an intellectual understanding that letting go is necessary, but there's also the emotional reality of grief, fear, and uncertainty. Both can
Mm-hmm.
exist simultaneously, and that's completely normal. I often tell my clients that if they're not feeling at least a little bit of discomfort during seasons of change, they're probably not growing. You're not doing it right.
Yeah, yeah.
Discomfort is not a sign that you're doing it wrong. It's often a sign that you're doing it right.
Yeah. And if you're not feeling at least a little discomfort, you're probably not growing. That's going on my mirror this week. I love it. I love it. I love it. So let's dive a little deeper and talk about what we might actually need to prune in our lives. Because sometimes we have this idea that pruning is just about cutting out, obviously toxic things, those harmful relationships, destructive habits, or clearly negative thought patterns. And while that's definitely a part of it, pruning is actually more nuanced than that. Sometimes, and this is the part that keeps me up at night, is we have to let go of good things that are no longer serving our growth. Well, they served a purpose in the time that we had it. Things that were once right for us at a certain time, but they aren't right for where we are right now. And that's where it gets really tough, because letting go of something that once felt right can feel wrong. And that's a weird feeling. It kind of is disorienting in a way, like we're being ungrateful or we're giving things up too easily.
Yeah, that's so good, Nicole. And it even touches one of the most challenging aspects of the fall season, because sometimes we do outgrow things. Jobs that
Mm,
once were dreams, but no longer challenge us. Friendships
yeah.
that were once life giving, but have run their natural course. Even certain dreams or goals that represented who we were, but not who we're becoming.
Mm,
And that doesn't mean that those things were bad or wrong. It doesn't invalidate the role they played in our journey. It just meant they have already served their purpose. Think
yeah.
about it like this. A tree doesn't just shed dead branches. Sometimes even healthy branches have to be trimmed so that the tree can direct its energy to grow stronger in a particular direction.
I like that analogy. And you know what? Honestly, I think it takes real maturity to recognize when something has served its season in your life.
Mhm.
You know, you have to reflect in order to recognize that. I remember having a business partnership that was amazing for a few years. We supported each other, grew together, had similar values, but gradually our visions for the future started to diverge, and neither vision was wrong. They were just different. And I remember feeling almost guilty for considering ending the partnership because on paper, nothing was wrong.
Yeah, and that guilt is so common because we've internalized this idea that unless something is toxic or terrible, we should stick with it, even relationships.
Yes.
But that's like saying you should never update your wardrobe unless your clothes are literally falling apart.
Right? Like these jeans from the 90s still technically cover my body, so I guess I'm keeping them forever.
Exactly. And pruning often feels personal. We wonder, am I being ungrateful? Am I making the wrong choice? What will people think? But sometimes
Mm-hmm.
the very thing that got you to this point isn't meant to take you to the next.
Yeah.
That business partnership served its perfect purpose for a season. And recognizing when that season had run its course is actually honoring what it was, not diminishing it.
And you know what? That's such an important reframe. So, what are some signs that something might need to be pruned, even if it's not obviously something negative or what we deem, I don't know. I don't like saying toxic because now, it's trendy. Everybody's like, oh, that's toxic or whatever. It's just things that, may not be an obvious bad thing for you in your life. It's not maladaptive, so to speak, but what about things that are good that also need to be pruned? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. It's not always
Mm-hmm.
obvious when something has served its season, but here are
Mm-hmm.
a few ways to tell. If it no longer
Okay.
brings you peace, if it
Mm-hmm.
keeps you from growing, if you're holding on out of fear, those are some of
Mm-hmm.
the top three, the top three things. So if it no longer brings you joy or peace, if something is constantly draining you, it makes you feel less fulfilled, it might be time to
Mm-hmm.
release it. And I'm not
Yeah.
talking about a rough patch. We all have those. I mean, when you
Yeah.
feel a constant sense of heaviness or dread when you think about it.
Mm.
And that could be a commitment you once loved, but now it feels like an obligation. Maybe it's a friendship that used to feel uplifting, but now it only feels one-sided. Maybe
Gotcha.
it's a creative project that once energized you, but now it feels like more of a burden. Pay attention to that shift in energy. It's probably telling you something important.
That's good.
Yeah. Next, if it keeps you from growing, if you feel stuck or stagnant, ask yourself, what's holding you back? Sometimes, again, we stay in familiar places because they feel safe. But if you're not learning, evolving, or feeling challenged in a healthy way, it could be a sign you've outgrown where you are. I had this client once who was in a job where she was highly valued, right? Her boss
Mm-hmm.
loved her, the work was easy, and the paycheck was reliable. But she had this persistent feeling, is this all there is? She wasn't growing,
Mm.
she wasn't using her gifts fully, and deep down she knew she was capable of so much more. That comfortable job was actually keeping her from stepping into her fuller position.
Yeah. How many of us can relate to that,
Exactly. Yes. And then finally, if you're only holding on out of fear, and this is a big one,
Mm.
y'all. Sometimes
Yeah.
we don't let go because we're terrified of what will happen if we do. We think,
Mm.
what if I never find another opportunity? What if I let go and regret it? What if the unknown is worse than what I have now? But here's the truth bomb. Fear should never be the only reason we stay. If it's the
Yeah.
only thing keeping you tied to something or to someone, that's actually a strong sign that it might be time to take a leap.
Oh, that last one hits home like a wrecking ball. Fear can keep so many of us stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. Stepping into uncertainty is very scary. It's like standing at the edge of a cliff and not being able to see the bottom. But I've learned that sometimes the discomfort of staying where you are is actually greater than the fear of stepping into something new. And when we resist pruning, we resist growth. It's like trying to wear all your clothes at once because you can't decide what to let go of. You just end up sweaty, uncomfortable, and unable to move.
Wow, that visual. But it's so true. And I think it's important to remember that pruning isn't punishment. We talked about this before. It's
Yeah.
preparation. It's not about losing something, it's about making room for something better. We have to think about it this way. If your closet is stuffed with clothes you never wear, you'll miss the outfit that could become your favorite because there's simply no space for it. Ugh, maybe I should let him put some things in the Goodwill box. Our lives work the same way when we're cluttered with relationships, commitments, or habits that no longer serve us. We literally just don't have the capacity to receive what's meant for us.
Yeah. And that shift in perspective changes everything. Instead of seeing pruning as something being taken from us, we can see it as something, being prepared for us. Maybe that's a new opportunity, a deeper relationship, or, simply just more peace and more clarity.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when we let go of what no longer serves us, we open ourselves up to receive what does, right?
Yeah.
And often what's waiting on the other side of release is far better than what we've been holding on to.
Oh, that's the key. Letting go isn't about loss, it's about alignment. And when we trust that, we stop clinging to what was and start preparing for what's next, like
Mhm.
forgetting what was before and
Yes.
pressing on towards what's ahead.
Amen. And just like how trees don't resist dropping their leaves when the fall comes, they simply
Mhm.
release them as a part of their natural cycle. We can learn to see our own letting go as natural and a necessary part of our growth.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about trusting the process of letting go. Because pruning isn't just about removing things, it's about believing that something better is coming. And let's be honest, that's a hard mindset shift when all you see is what's being taken away.
Yes.
And it's like, it's like when the waiter takes your appetizer plate away and you're sitting there like, but I still got one bite left. What are you doing? I'm sorry, my mind is all over the place right now. Anyway, except, it's way more significant, of course. It's not that simplistic.
Yeah, again, I feel so called out right now. That literally happened to me yesterday. I'm definitely that person chasing down the waiter, like, excuse me, I wasn't done with that yet. But you're obviously right. This is where
Mhm.
faith comes in. We have to
Yeah.
trust that even when things are falling away, God is making room for something new. But that's hard, right? When we're attached,
Yeah.
whether it's a relationship or expectation or even an old version of ourselves. There's a
Yeah.
quote that I love. Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase.
Oh, isn't that MLK, I think?
Yes. In fall seasons, we often ask to take that step without seeing exactly where it leads. And that's scary.
Right. Right? If we're honest, sometimes we don't even realize how much we're holding on to. We get comfortable even in the things that no longer serve us just because they're familiar. It's like that junk drawer that we have in the kitchen that's full of just random stuff. Those takeout menus from restaurants that already close, batteries you're not even sure that work, and some random instruction manuals for appliances you don't even own anymore, but you keep it all just in
Oh
case.
my goodness. I literally just went through that exact drawer earlier today.
Oh my God.
But one thing I always remind people is growth requires space. If you never
Yes.
let go, you can't make room for what's next, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine trying to plant a new flower in a garden that's overcrowded with weeds and dead leaves. If you don't clear it out, nothing new can take root. And it's the
Yeah.
same in our lives. If your schedule is packed with commitments that drain you, or your kids' commitments, where will you
Yeah.
find the opportunity that energizes you? If your heart is consumed with relationships that take more than they give, where will you find space for connections that truly nourish you?
You know what? That's such a powerful visual. And I was working with a client once who was struggling with this exact thing.
Mhm.
She had been in a long term friendship that over time became really one sided. She was the one who always reached out, always supporting, always making the effort. And deep down, she knew it wasn't healthy anymore. It was just draining her. But the thought of letting go felt like a failure, like giving up on someone she really cared about. She kept saying, but we've been friends for 15 years. I can't just walk away. I was like, why not? Anyway, it was like she thought she had to earn the right to prioritize her own well-being by suffering enough first. And I'm not heartless. In my mind, I said,
Yeah,
why not? But I'm also not I wasn't in that relationship and understanding, she cared about this person,
right.
but it was not adding to her life,
Hmm.
in a good way.
Yeah. And you know what? I hear that so often. We feel guilty for outgrowing certain relationships, especially the long-standing ones, even when they're
Mm-hmm.
not good for us anymore. It's like we sign some invisible contract that says once you've invested X amount of time, you're obligated to stay forever, regardless of how that impacts you. We know that's not healthy.
No.
But relationships, like everything else in life, have seasons. Some are meant to last a lifetime, evolving and growing with us. Others are meant for a specific chapter in our journey. Neither is
Mm-hmm.
wrong. They just serve different purposes.
Exactly. But it's hard, I think, being in these relationships, it's hard to kind of absorb that when you're actually going through it. But here's what happened with my client. When she finally set some boundaries and stopped forcing the friendship, stopped being the only one making an effort, she realized how much energy she had been pouring into something that wasn't given back.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like she had been watering a plant for years without realizing it had long ago stopped growing.
Wow.
So, yeah. And in that space she created by stepping back, she was able to cultivate some new life-giving friendships and relationships that truly supported her. It wasn't easy. Of course, she grieved that friendship, but she also told me later that it was one of the best things she ever did for her own well-being.
Yeah, that's such a powerful reminder. Letting go doesn't mean we don't care, or it doesn't mean that we didn't value what once was. It means we
Yeah.
care enough about ourselves to make room for what's meant for us.
Yeah.
And sometimes the most loving thing we can do for others is stop forcing connections that have naturally run their course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When we do this with intention and kindness, we honor what was without clinging on to what's no longer there. It's freeing for both parties.
Yes. And there's something else important here. Sometimes when we prune something from our lives, we start to discover that the space it leaves feels uncomfortable at 1st.
Mm-hmm.
There's this awkward in between time where we've let go of the old, but the new hasn't fully arrived yet. I call it the messy middle. And it's where a lot of people panic and try to rush back to try to cling to what's familiar, even if it wasn't serving them, because it's the discomfort of being in that messy middle.
Yeah, the messy middle. That's such a perfect name for it. And you're right. So many people find that space is so uncomfortable that they try to quickly fill it with something else, anything else, rather than sit in the discomfort for a while. But there's
Yeah.
wisdom in allowing space to just exist. Just like in music, the pauses between notes are what create the rhythm and the beauty. If we rush to fill in every empty space in our life, we miss the opportunity to hear what's trying to emerge.
That's such a beautiful metaphor. I think I'm going to put that on social media. But anyway, the pauses, between the notes, I just love that. It reminds me that sometimes what looks like nothing happening is actually an essential part of that composition.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes that means trusting that the discomfort of pruning is temporary, but the growth that comes from it is lasting. It's like saying short-term pain for long-term gain.
Yeah. And can we talk about how sometimes the things we need to prune aren't external at all? Sometimes they're internal. Those beliefs about ourselves, our expectations, perfectionism, people pleasing patterns, all of the things.
Oh my goodness, yes. This is actually the most important pruning of all. These limiting beliefs like, I'm not qualified enough, I don't deserve good things, I have to be perfect to be loved. These are like weeds that strangle out growth from the inside. And sometimes the most powerful pruning we can do is questioning those beliefs that have become so familiar we don't even notice them anymore. Just because you
Mm-hmm.
always thought something about yourself doesn't make it true.
Absolutely. Pruning is not punishment, it's preparation.
Yep.
That needs to be on a t-shirt because we said that about 12 times.
Exactly.
you know, whether we're releasing external circumstances or internal limitations, it's all about making space for what's truly meant for us.
Yes. And when we embrace that, even when it's uncomfortable, we position ourselves for something greater. The tree doesn't resist the falling leaves because it knows that that's exactly what needs to happen before the new growth can emerge in the spring.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap up, not just this episode, but this season of life series, I want to leave our audience with one question to reflect on this week. So, the prompt is, what's one thing you need to release this season so you can grow? It might be a relationship that has run its course, a commitment that no longer aligns with your priorities, a limiting belief about what you're capable of, or even just the need to control outcomes. Whatever it is, I encourage you to sit with this question and sit with it with courage and some compassion. So, LaQuesia, do you have any final thoughts to our listeners as they consider what might need pruning in their lives?
Sure. I want them to remember that letting go isn't losing. It's just making room for better. It's not about subtraction. It's about creation. What looks like an ending from one perspective is actually the beginning from another. And if you don't have to do it all at once, just like trees don't drop all their leaves in a single day, you can approach your own season of release with patience and grace. Start with one thing. Notice how that feels, and then trust the process.
Oh, that's beautiful. And, I think that's a perfect way to conclude our season of life series. We've traveled through winter's stillness, spring's growth, summer's abundance, and now fall's release. These rhythms that shape not just in nature, but in our own lives as well. I truly want to thank you, LaQuesia, for sharing your wisdom throughout this entire journey. You've given our listeners so many practical tools and profound insights to navigate each season with more intention and grace. I just want to thank you so much for joining me this time.
It's been my absolute pleasure, Nicole. These conversations have been so meaningful, and I hope they continue to resonate with your listeners as they move through their own seasons.
Yeah. And for everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this journey through the seasons of life. If these episodes have impacted you, we'd love to hear about it. Share your insights on social media and tag Be Well with Nicole G or Love Therapy DFW. Or you can just leave us a review sharing which season resonated with you the most. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next series where we will be exploring Has Anybody Seen Love? And that is one that I do with my beloved husband. It should be a very interesting ride. So hopefully you guys will tune in. And until next time, remember that every ending makes space for a new beginning. This is Nicole with the Back to Life podcast. Be well, and I'll talk to you soon.